Hello, I'm Amanda Swartwout, and I am an interior designer. I'm also a business owner and adjunct professor, and really I'm blessed to be able to wake up every day, drink an unacceptable amount of coffee, and design things. I'm a 12-year advocate across 3 different states, and that's taught me that the most important piece of advocacy is the conversation and how we educate people about what we do. So today my main message is about how I advocate. First, if it's going to turn, I'm not sure if it is.
It's been 30 seconds.
You were talking pretty fast.
Was I?
You were.
Yeah.
There we go.
Why I advocate. So the EPA estimates that the average American spends 90% of their lives indoors. So if you think about the other professions that architecture is always held up against, it's typically doctors and lawyers, right? But if you're spending 90% of your life under the influence of a doctor or a lawyer, it's safe to say you're probably in pretty bad shape. But the design profession, we potentially influence 90% of people's lives, and that is a tremendous responsibility. One of my biggest non-industry problems was actually my own mother. She used to say to me in her straight-up Wisconsin accent, "So Amanda, what is it exactly that you do?" There's coloring involved, right? And I realized after a few years that I had to make what I did accessible to my mom, or she was never going to get it. So Mom Swartwout is a registered nurse, and she will tell you that the registered is very important to her. So I looked into her profession, and I found a couple of interesting things. So the abbreviated story of nursing is that historically, nursing services were provided by either doctors or family of the sick, nuns, or the military. So as a member of the general public, you received your nursing services from someone who was either trained but not specialized, or someone with little to no medical training at all. Over time, as the profession grew, the public felt it needed to regulate nursing in order to ensure the administration of safe quality care. That seems fair, right? And it grew into many different levels of expertise, ranging from a PhD to no medical training required. Many of these expert levels have scope that overlaps with expert levels around them. So for instance, a doctor and a nurse practitioner can prescribe medicine, yet there's still an absolute need for all of these people at the table. So I explained to her that we have a similar structure, and I pointed out my place in our design scale. And then the light bulb went on for Mom Swartwout, and from there I learned to use examples previously established and accepted by society whenever you can. Analogies make friends. So, I've been called a finish picker by industry professionals more times than I can count. And I had a thought one day, is there a way that I can make this work for me and not against me? So one day I said, okay, architect, you're right. I'm a finish picker. If that's all you're going to give me, I'll take it. I'll take the finishes, the materials, the furniture, and we'll call it good, no problem. But before you walk away, I'd like to talk to you about the state of the people in the United States today. So, in 2013, 487,000 structure fires occurred in the US, causing an alarming amount of injuries, deaths, and property damage. In all these cases, interior furnishings and content were the first ignition point. We just agreed interior furnishings and content are in my scope. There were 296,000 missed work days in 2013 due to trips, slips, and falls. Furniture and fixtures caused 50,000 of them. Floors, walkways, and ground surfaces caused 189,000 of them. And guess what? Furniture, fixtures, floors, walkways, and ground surfaces are all in my scope. 78% of hospital rooms are contaminated with harmful bacteria. This leads to 100,000 deaths and $4.5 billion in healthcare costs a year. The World Health Organization states, the choice of construction materials, especially when considered in the covering of internal surfaces, is important. Floor coverings need to be easy to clean, and this applies to all items in the environment. Internal surfaces, floor coverings, and patient environment are all in my scope. The average daytime hospital noise level is alarming. It is now close to 72 decibels. It actually falls closer to a busy highway than to the recommended levels. Noise causes sleep loss, elevated blood pressure, impedes on communication, and it causes emotional exhaustion. Studies have shown that materials and finishes selected for ceilings, walls, and floors can greatly improve the acoustic environment. Materials and finishes, such as ceilings, walls, and flooring, are all in my scope. I am talking kind of fast.
Doing great.
So 30 million people are exposed to hazardous noise in the workplace a year. Noise affects task performance, it increases the amount of errors made, it reduces motivation and ergonomic adjustments. The GSA acknowledges that workspaces require acoustical treatments to absorb noise, including ceiling tiles, carpeting, furniture, finishes, curtains, etc. Well, guess what? Ceiling tiles, carpeting, furniture, finishes, curtains, etc. are all in my scope. And this last one here, it changes. 1 in 12 adults and 1 in 11 children in the U.S. have asthma. That's huge. It results in 14.2 million missed work days and 10.5 million missed days of school. Health organizations have identified a number of chemicals that are known to cause the onset of asthma. And these chemicals are also common ingredients in many interior finishes, like floors, carpets, and paints. But it is possible to improve asthma by reducing or eliminating these chemicals from building materials. Guess what's in my scope? Floors, carpets, paints, etc. That was a lot. Okay, and this next slide, just for grins, is an extensive list of all the reputable sources that this information came from. But mostly I'd like to say, dear professional, don't be scope shaming me, talking about how all I do is pick finishes and materials, because the last time I checked, that seemed pretty important. What the interior design profession does, if executed properly, has a tremendous impact on the health and welfare of the general public. So how we educate those around us is extremely important. We are the faces of the interior design profession, all of us. The burden of understanding is placed with us. So I urge you all to use your voice and stand united, be the change you wish to see, and tell your story. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to start off today by telling you guys a little bit about myself and how I got to where I am today, and as a recent graduate, why I want to be a more involved advocate for legislation for the interior design profession. I've known from a very young age that I wanted to become an interior designer. Of course, other interests have, come and gone throughout the years, and I even entertained the thought that I wanted to be a doctor. But, high school biology class really crushed those dreams. But by around age 7 or 8, I was spending my time lying in my bedroom drawing out floor plans of how I could rearrange my furniture. I even made sure to include all the windows, floor vents, and door swings so that I knew the furniture wouldn't get in the way of the room functioning properly. And I also figured out how to butter up my dad with brownies to actually move the furniture for me until I could do it myself. I didn't realize it at the time, but I was already being practical about the physical limitations of space in regards to design strategies. As I grew up, I continued to try and educate myself on the interior design profession as often as I could. When choosing paper or speech topics, I would always find a way to write or talk about design. My parents also gave me huge amounts of creative freedom when it came to my bedroom. That was the space I had as an outlet for my ideas, even if I didn't always make the best design decisions. But, we've all tried to make a zebra wall work at some point. It wouldn't just be me. In my junior year of high school, I was starting to look at colleges. And at this point, interior design was still my main goal. I searched for schools that had interior design programs in the Midwest, but I wasn't sure at the time if college was something that I really wanted to pursue. I was convinced that interior design school was basically the same thing as art school. And, you either got the skills to make something that looks good or you don't. In my mind, I didn't know more I could be taught. Fortunately, my parents made me realize that going to college was in my best interest and would give me more credibility as a potential employee in the future. So I decided to cross the border and become a Husker, much to my Hawkeye father's dismay. My first semester in the College of Architecture was a huge eye-opener. One of the first classes I took was Intro to Design, taught by Stacy, Spale, of course, and it completely expanded my understanding of who an interior designer is. By that point in my life, I had really only ever been exposed to residential interior design, and I hadn't even thought about literally every other space I use needing to also be well designed. I was definitely starting to understand the responsibility that interior designers have, and from then on, I viewed spaces in a much more critical way. My freshman year, I also learned about 2 interior design organizations, ASID and IIDA. I was eager to have a chance to get involved with these groups and take the opportunity to get to know more about the profession in addition to meeting other designers in the area. I thought it was so cool there were communities of people that I could get involved with and get to know that had similar interests as me. It wasn't until my third year in the program that I first heard about IDCN. There was a tailgate event on a Saturday morning in Architecture Hall before one of the football games. Probably a total of around 6 students showed up to eat food and talk with the designers, and although we chatted a lot about Adam Levine and The Bachelorette, I also learned what IDCN was and what they were advocating for. As a student, it was frustrating for me to learn that in Nebraska, anyone can claim the title interior designer without a single semester of additional education. After that day, and even throughout the rest of my schooling, I looked back and realized all that I had learned. I'm now a 23-year-old graduate and finally getting the chance to start my long-awaited career as an interior designer. It's something that I say with pride when people ask me, what do you do? Or the infamous, what's next after graduation? Because I've worked so hard these last 4 years to get to this point. I'm sure many of you understand what I say. It can be a little irritating when people respond, oh, that must be so much fun, you just have to come over and help me with my house. Or, my sister-in-law just started her decorating business. I mean, come on. The term decorator is one that many people outside the design industry use interchangeably with designer, and I can understand why. The general public simply doesn't have a complete understanding of what designers actually do on a day-to-day basis besides selecting paint colors and furniture. And as a result, I believe they don't entirely respect the level of precision and detail the profession requires. Now, I don't want to pretend like I'm anywhere close to an expert on this particular topic or that I have any of the answers, but I do believe that it's very important to continue informing people about our jobs. Legislation for interior designers is important, and it affects the public a lot more than they realize. Students need to be aware of this issue they will face once they graduate and begin their careers. They also need to realize the design community is a supportive one, and that we're all trying to work together towards the same goal. We all worked so hard to get to where we are today. I believe it's important to continue working together as the community we are to advocate for ourselves and make people aware of the value we have as interior designers.
Okay,
So, she wants to be an interior designer. Does she really need to get into 70 grand student debt to do something that she could just watch on HGTV and learn how to do? This represents a very common question that I as an educator get from parents on an almost daily basis. This is also the time when I really wish I could fall back on a piece of legislation that would give our profession a little bit more validity. 7 out of 10 of our graduates left school with 30 grand student debt last year. Here's a brief glimpse into how school has changed in the last few years. We're going through a huge curriculum change, and there's a lot of things that we're doing differently that are actually really, really good. The basics, we've realized, are all the same. It doesn't matter which profession you go in, the basics, like representation, are always the same. If you can draw something like a green pepper in perspective, in plan, in section, then you can draw something more complicated, like a building. The D1 curriculum has design thinking and design making. We also do creativity exercises like the Lego Studio. Here, parents will always say, but Stacy, my daughter's already creative. Why do we need to teach that? Iteration is multidisciplinary. It doesn't matter which of the design professions you go into, things change. This exercise includes building an animal out of Legos. Then it's a building. Then how big is a person? Now it's a chair. Change it again. I don't want them to think their first idea is ever the best idea. At the end of the first year now, they make the application process to the second year design studio. By doing this cut sooner, we can actually do interior design projects a whole year sooner than we have been doing it. We still teach the same skills. We still do drawing. We still build models with craftsmanship. We talk about perspective. But the emphasis is on empathy, designing because we give a damn, and materiality, the tangible and intangible reasons that we make our selections. The materials course is one people think they're really gonna like. Now this is gonna be my shameless plug for interns. They might not know much, but they know how to clean a library. Right? So this first course is mostly performance-based, and at the end of the course I usually hear comments like, I didn't know there was more to paint than the color, and this is really how I judge their learning. A new course this year is Programs, Codes, and Standards, and this fills a previous weakness. We were not good at teaching codes before this past year. And so one of the best ways that I found to talk about codes is to send students out on campus and find examples of really bad design. Really bad design, it's not hard. Then they discover the code implications to changing those really bad design decisions. We learn a little bit about budget, a little bit about what happens when we make bad choices. Construction documents, another really evolving course. We try to get out every other week onto a job site so our students can see the link between what we draw and what our partners build. This is also the course where they realize the validity that would happen if we had legislation. Before this, I'm not sure students really get it. But when we're in the field and a contractor says, what you decorators should know is, they get it, right? There's no excuse for that. This year we also brought back the third year studio trip to Chicago. And this is a great hands-on learning experience. This photo was taken just outside the Merchandise Mart. Here we had a whirlwind 3 days of learning. We visited a firm of every flavor. We visited Gensler as a huge firm, IA as a mid-size, and Wright we met as a very small firm. And although none of these students landed an out-of-state internship this year, it has begun the process of networking for their future careers. And everyone we met emphasized how who you know and what you know is really important. We also saw some of the city. We got some culture. But what I really wanted the students to get out of this was that context is everything, right? Unless you know your city and your client and your people, every decision that you make as a designer falls back into context. We're giving them the framework for all those things we talk about in class to actually embed that in real design decisions. Hopefully we get to do that again. We also always have the career fair, internship fair. And this is a time the students, again, get to feel very frustrated. I always talk about my NCIDQ application and what that means to me and what that's meant to me as a professional. But when the students go around and ask firms, so how do you support getting the NCIDQ? Some of them aren't really satisfied with the answers that they're receiving. Some of them don't understand what states require it, what don't, what states you can just change what you're called. It's a confusing subject. So to help clear that up, we started Student Advocacy Day, which is basically Career Day, where we really talked about how we can educate our students on the importance of our professional organizations, our common goals. Unfortunately, every time I look at this sign, I get upset because a lot of them were vandalized in Architecture Hall by our peers. And it brings me the thought that perhaps we should be educating our architecture and landscape architecture students as well as the professionals because they are the future. The Healthcare Design Studio. This is a great experiential learning. We do all the things that you would think that we do. We visit hospitals, talk to nurses and doctors. But we also have a couple weeks where we force them to design from a Four Wheels perspective. And this is an empathy gaining exercise that not only helps for my class, but their careers in the future, I believe. So particularly in healthcare, when the stakes are so high, I think we need legislation to protect the health, the safety, and the welfare of our most vulnerable. This was the invitation we got to the Healthcare Design Conference. STERIS sponsors 4 student groups from 4 different universities around the country every year, and we got an invite last year, which was a huge honor. Now, only 2 of the 4 groups brought interior designers, and I will let you guess which teams had the most complete and beautiful and appropriate projects. It was the ones that brought interior designers. I think this educated not only our interior designers, but the architects as well, how valuable they were. I always stress to my students as well how important it is to get involved outside the classroom. These are the students that came to the IDCN Michael Murphy presentation. I have to say, they were really wowed to see not only the speaker and the content, but how many of you guys showed up. That really spoke to them. I also offered them a substantial amount of extra credit. But it was an effective way. That's not hard for me to do, right? And so this is one way that educators can combine with professionals and help create passion. It's hard to teach passion. How do you get people excited? So here's the class of 2015. And again, just as the ending point, it really shouldn't matter which design profession these students choose to take. They've all had a great education, and they've all had a little bit of experience. And with a little legislation to set them apart from the crowd, they'll be a huge asset to their professions.
127 professionals in Nebraska have taken the NCIDQ, and I think that is something that we should totally brag about. 127 is way more than I thought. So I know I'm running way over time, but I really think we should brag about this, and I think that from the student standpoint, we're going to start keeping track of the college, of who takes the exam, who passes it, and giving them a huge shout out on our Facebook, on our website, on our Twitter and Instagram. We have a social media person now. So anyway, I just think it's a really, really important thing, and I'm so excited that even though the college is going through a lot of changes, we're headed in a really good direction.
I want to talk even more about the healthcare one, because I used to do a lot of disability design. You ready?
Sure, go for it. Okay, so many of you know me already. I'm Penny with Mohawk. I used to be a designer for about 12 years before making the switch to sales. These are all the certifications that I have taken over those 12 years before making the switch. So NCIDQ, EAP, AAHID, and EDAC, and then being a professional member of IIDA. I'm running out of time too. There are many reasons why interior design legislation is important to me from a designer's point of view. Oh man! Everything that Stacy and Amanda have said already. But as a manufacturer's representative, there are other issues that I see from my point of view. As a manufacturer representative, I am the first person anyone from Mohawk sees, both good and bad. In this role, I absolutely dread the call. Have you ever seen this before? What is going on? Why is my carpet curling? And can you pause this? It's never good. In rare cases, it is a manufacturing problem. But the majority of the time, it was something that was specified wrong. Either it was the wrong adhesive was specified, or it was the wrong product for that installation. I've been with Mohawk for 2 years now, and I've seen a lot of bad situations. This is one, for example, where the wrong adhesive was specified for that stone log VCT product. So all the tiles were popping up. And guess what? It's specified wrong. That's not a manufacturer's problem. It falls back on the architect and designer that specified the wrong product. This is another case where there's nothing wrong with the carpet, but a year down the road, I get a call from the end user, and they can't keep it clean because it was too light and there wasn't enough pattern to it. So what do? There's nothing I can do from a manufacturer's point of view, but the designer or architect should have considered what kind of traffic and where this installation is going to have. What I'd rather get is the call, you know that faculty carpet that you guys make? Yeah, I'm really sick of it, but our facility manager doesn't want to change it because it still looks good after 15 years. Do you have anything that coordinates that we can use instead for the addition? That's the call that I like to get. Let's see. As a manufacturer representative, knowing I'm working with a qualified interior designer means the right product will be specified for an installation, and the specification will be written correctly for the product to be installed in the correct method. I'm here to help you with product questions, installation questions, and questions about specifications, and I know a qualified interior designer will be asking me the right questions so I can help them specify the right product for the job. The last thing I want to be doing is spending my time filling out these reports. They're not fun, I'll tell you. I want to be spending my time helping you design beautiful, functional, safe interior spaces with the health, safety, and welfare of the public in mind.
All right, and finally, Linsey Lisa.
You said all your slides, so they're all 30 seconds. Just so you know.
Facts. Just speaking from the heart, guys.
Ready?
Yeah.
All right, go.
I'm Lisowyj, ASID, NCIDQ, president of the Nebraska Iowa chapter of ASID, and designer at the interior design firm in Omaha. What's the best way to define the duty of an interior designer? We are multifaceted thinkers and problem solvers. We work in an industry where the design problems are as diverse as we are as creative people. The work we do isn't merely functional, and it isn't just aesthetic. There's a depth to our design mind that is floored by our passion and commitment to impacting how people experience the built environment. When I think of interior design, or specifically an interior designer, the best definition of the work we do is that through our designs, we impact the way that people live, work, heal, play, and grow. It really resonated with me. I think I heard it from a national, either IIDA or ASID, not original. Talking about, let's talk about, that's an immense responsibility that we have for the rest of humanity, right? If we're influencing, what Stacy, didn't you say like 90, or was that Amanda, 90%? I mean 90%, everything's designed, right? So, like, with everything literally being designed, not well all the time, but that's where our expertise is needed. Some of my clients are apologetic about not being able to design, and I was kind of chuckle. I'm like, well, I wouldn't have a job if you knew how to, so, you know. So what makes a qualified interior designer? Formal education, sitting for the NCIDQ exam, sharpening problem-solving skills, learning from mistakes, being an active member in their professional organizations, taking part in community projects, striving for excellent customer service, asking questions, and having professional and personal integrity. They're all great qualities that successful people possess. I, for one, hold myself accountable for providing informed and quality work. If I don't understand something, I find that information so that I'm able to carry out that work. I never like to turn down business. I passed the NCIDQ, and I never want to stop continuing my education. Turn the page. ASID and IIDA exist to provide their members the platform to continue their education, network within the industry, and celebrate outstanding design. And in our great state, they provide credibility and distinction from non-members. Legislation will not only provide a legal definition for our profession, it will help us expand our business opportunities, and more importantly, the depth of our impact. Legislative efforts will expand our practice opportunities, and the field of interior design will grow. And when the field grows, so does our business. So how are we going to get there? Before we can begin the letter campaigns and addressing our state senators, there's something that we should do at the local level. Oh my God, I'm talking so slow. I shouldn't have adjusted the time. Well, before we go, knocking on the senators' doors, we got to focus on our similarities as interior designers rather than our differences. And IDCN is the organization that unifies all interior designers and those within the field in Nebraska. Unity is the state of many acting as one. It is an attribute of highly effective teams, and without it, progress stops. No matter our differences in the day-to-day, the scale of our projects, our own signature design styles, IDCN exists to provide a platform for us to align ourselves to take the next step toward advancing our profession. Along with unity, professional respect is at the root of a good and productive team. I have mad respect for the product representatives within our field that make my job a little bit easier by delivering samples to me in bagels, like at a moment's notice. And I also have respect for the designers that found their calling at mid or large scale architectural firms. They carry out important design solutions that affect hundreds and thousands at a time. And then I definitely respect designers like me that wear 20 hats a day and they're riding that straight commission roller coaster. The variety in our profession is what makes interior design so compelling, and it's our passion and commitment to impacting people positively that drives the need for legislative effort in Nebraska. If you look around the room, you'll see like-minded people who will defend your ability to and right to practice interior design. Look around you and see not the differences in our practice, but rather the difference makers.